The galaxy had long forgotten about humans. To most civilizations, humanity was nothing more than a story passed down through generations, a tale of a race that once ruled the stars but disappeared without a trace. The stories described humans as fierce warriors, brilliant inventors, and relentless explorers who dared to go where no other species would venture. But over time, those tales became myths, dismissed by scholars as exaggerated legends meant to entertain rather than inform. On the planet Zorath 7, however, there were still some who believed in the possibility that humans might have existed. Among them was Layla Hart, a young xenobiologist with a curious mind and an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Lila spent her days studying ancient texts and artifacts, searching for any shred of evidence that could prove humanity's existence. She often found herself at odds with others in her field, like Ryan Cole, a pragmatic engineer who preferred facts over speculation. Ryan thought Layla's fascination with human myths was a waste of time, but he couldn't deny her passion or her intelligence. Zorath 7 was a peaceful world, home to a diverse population of beings from various corners of the galaxy. It was also the seat of power for the Galactic Council, a governing body responsible for maintaining order among the many species that inhabited the known universe. The Council rarely dealt with matters outside their immediate jurisdiction, so when strange energy readings began appearing near the edge of explored space, it caused quite a stir. At first, the signals were faint, almost undetectable, but they grew stronger with each passing day. Some speculated that the readings were natural phenomena, while others feared they might belong to an unknown enemy preparing to invade. Lila saw this as an opportunity to test her theories. She had always suspected that humanity's disappearance wasn't due to extinction but relocation. Perhaps they had fled their homeworld after some catastrophic event and settled somewhere far beyond the reach of galactic civilization. When she presented her ideas to the Council, she was met with skepticism. Many dismissed her claims outright, while others listened politely but remained unconvinced. Ryan, predictably, rolled his eyes whenever Lila brought up the subject. "You're chasing ghosts," he told her one evening as they sat together in the research lab. "Humans are just a bedtime story." But Lila refused to give up. She pored over data collected by deep space probes, analyzing every detail until her eyes blurred. One night, while reviewing the latest scans, she noticed something unusual. The energy signatures didn't match anything naturally occurring in the universe. They pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Could it be artificial? If so, what or who was creating them? Her heart raced as she realized this could be the breakthrough she'd been waiting for. The next morning, Lila hurried to the council chambers to share her findings. She knew convincing them wouldn't be easy, especially since the majority of council members viewed her theories as little more than fantasy. Still, she hoped that presenting concrete evidence might sway their opinions. As she stood before the assembly, her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. "These readings are unlike anything we've encountered before," she explained, projecting images of the scans onto a large screen. "They suggest the presence of advanced technology, possibly belonging to a species capable of interstellar travel." A murmur rippled through the room as the council members exchanged glances. Some looked intrigued while others appeared skeptical. Finally, an elder named Kale spoke up. "Even if these readings are genuine, how can you be certain they're connected to humans?" he asked. "There are countless civilizations out there we've yet to discover. Why assume it's them?" Layla hesitated, knowing her answer wouldn't satisfy everyone. "Because humans were pioneers," she replied. "The ships were said to traverse the galaxy faster than any other species. If anyone could survive in exile, it's them." Her words hung in the air, daring the council to dismiss her again. To her surprise, several members nodded thoughtfully. Considering her argument for the first time, Ryan watched the exchange from the back of the room, his arms crossed over his chest. He didn't believe in Lila's theories, but he admired her determination. After the meeting ended, he approached her as she packed up her notes. "You really think you're onto something?" he asked, his tone softer than usual. "I do," Lila said firmly, "and I'm not going to stop until I find proof." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Elena Grant, a decorated officer from the Zorithian Defense Force. Tall and commanding, Elena wasted no time getting to the point. "We've received reports of unidentified vessels moving toward our system," she announced. "If your theory is correct, Dr. Hart, we may soon have our answer." Layla felt a mix of excitement and dread. If the ships belonged to humans, it could mean vindication for all her hard work. But if they posed a threat, the consequences could be catastrophic. Together with Ryan, she joined Elena aboard a reconnaissance vessel tasked with investigating the mysterious fleet. As they left Zorath 7's atmosphere behind, Lila gazed out the window at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, lay the truth about humanity's fate and, perhaps, the key to understanding their own future. Hours passed as the ship neared the source of the energy signatures. Tension filled the air as the crew prepared for whatever awaited them. When the alien fleet finally came into view, everyone aboard fell silent. The ships were massive, their sleek designs unlike anything seen before. They hovered silently in formation, exuding an aura of power and mystery. Leela's breath caught in her throat. Could these truly be human vessels? Before anyone could react, one of the ships emitted a blinding flash of light. Moments later, a nearby asteroid exploded into fragments, scattering debris across the void. The message was unmistakable. Whoever controlled these ships was watching, and they weren't afraid to use force. Back on the reconnaissance vessel, alarms blared as the crew scrambled to respond. Elena barked orders, her face grim with determination. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," she shouted. "We need to get back to Zorath 7 immediately." As the ship turned to flee, Lila stared at the fleet through the viewport, her mind racing. Were these humans returning to reclaim their place in the galaxy or exact revenge on those who had abandoned them? Whatever the reason, one thing was certain. The legend of humanity had just become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Zorathian reconnaissance ship raced back toward their home planet, its engines roaring at full power. The crew worked frantically to stay ahead of the mysterious fleet, but fear hung heavy in the air. No one knew what these ships were capable of, or what their intentions might be. Layla Hart sat strapped into her seat, gripping the armrests tightly as she stared out the viewport. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Could these ships belong to humans? If so, why had they waited so long to reveal themselves? And why did they destroy that asteroid without warning? Ryan Cole glanced over at her from his position near the control panel. He could see the worry etched on her face. "You okay?" he asked, his voice calm despite the tension around them. Lila nodded but didn't speak right away. Finally, she said, I never imagined it would happen like this." "What if they're not here to talk?" Ryan frowned. "We don't know anything for sure yet. Let's focus on getting back safely." Captain Elena Grant stood at the helm, her sharp eyes scanning the instruments before her. She had already sent an urgent message to Zorath 7, alerting the Council and Defense forces about the approaching fleet. Now, all they could do was hope reinforcements would arrive in time. Behind them, the massive ships loomed larger with every passing second. They weren't chasing, but they didn't need to. Their sheer presence was enough to send waves of dread through everyone aboard. When the reconnaissance ship finally entered Zorath 7's atmosphere, relief washed over the crew. The planet's blue skies and sprawling cities stretched out below them, offering a temporary sense of safety. But as they landed at the main spaceport, they realized the situation was far from under control. News of the alien fleet had spread quickly, sparking panic among the population. Crowds gathered in the streets, whispering nervously about the mysterious ships. Some believed it was an invasion. Others clung to the hope that humanity had returned to reclaim its place in the galaxy. Lila and Ryan disembarked alongside Captain Grant, who immediately began coordinating with military officials. The council chambers were abuzz with activity when they arrived. Members argued heatedly about how to respond to the threat. Should they prepare for war or attempt diplomacy? Kale, the elder who had questioned Lila earlier, raised his voice above the chaos. "We cannot act blindly," he declared. We must first determine who or what we are dealing with. Elena stepped forward, addressing the council. With respect, Elder Kale, we may not have that luxury. These ships are armed and dangerous. We've already witnessed their firepower. If they decide to attack, we'll need every available resource to defend ourselves. Layla listened intently, her heart pounding. She wanted desperately to believe that the fleet meant no harm, but the destruction of the asteroid haunted her. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Perhaps the humans were trying to send a message rather than a threat. Gathering her courage, she spoke up. "What if they're testing us?" she suggested. "Maybe. They want to see how we react before making contact." The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at her. Ryan gave her a skeptical glance, but several council members seemed intrigued by the idea. One of them, a scientist named Dr. Mara Voss, leaned forward. "That's a possibility," she admitted. "But how do we communicate with them? We don't even know if they speak our language or if they're willing to listen." Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A technician rushed in, pale-faced and breathless. "They're here," he stammered. "The fleet has entered orbit." Panic erupted once again. Soldiers scrambled to secure the perimeter while civilians outside fled for shelter. Layla felt frozen in place, torn between terror and curiosity. Who were these beings? Were they truly human or something else entirely? As the council debated their next move, Captain Grant made a bold decision. "We need to send a team to meet them," she announced. "If they're looking for communication, we can't afford to ignore them." Layla's eyes widened. "I'll go," she volunteered. Instantly. "If they're human, I might understand their motives better than anyone else," Ryan groaned audibly. "Are you serious?" "It's too dangerous." "She's right," Elena interjected. "If there's even a chance we can avoid conflict, we have to take it. Dr. Hart, you'll lead the mission. Cole, you're the best engineer we've got, and we'll need your expertise if things go wrong." Despite his protests, Ryan reluctantly agreed. Within minutes, they were prepping a small shuttle designed for close encounters with unknown entities. As they boarded, Lila tried to steady her nerves. This was the moment she'd spent years dreaming of, but instead of excitement, she felt only unease. What if the humans weren't friendly? What if they blamed other species for abandoning them? The journey to the fleet seemed endless. The massive ships loomed closer with each passing second, their metallic surfaces gleaming ominously in the sunlight. When the shuttle reached the largest vessel, a beam of light illuminated its underside, guiding them toward a docking bay. Lila swallowed hard as the shuttle settled onto the platform. The hatch opened with a hiss, revealing a corridor bathed in dim red light. "Stay alert," Elena's voice crackled over the comms. "And remember, don't provoke them." Layla nodded, though no one could see her. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the shuttle, followed closely by Ryan. The air inside the ship was cool and carried a faint metallic tang. Everything around them was sleek and functional, with walls lined with pulsating lights that seemed almost alive. As they moved deeper into the vessel, footsteps echoed behind them. Turning, they saw a figure emerge from the shadows. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a uniform unlike anything they'd ever seen. His face was stern, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that locked onto Lila immediately. For a moment, neither side spoke. Then the man stepped forward, his voice low and commanding. "Who are you, and why are you here?" Lila hesitated, unsure how to respond. Finally, she said, "My name is Layla Hart. We represent the people of Zora 7. We came to ask who you are and why you've returned." The man studied her carefully before replying. "Commander Jack Monroe," he said. "And we haven't returned. We're survivors." He gestured for them to follow him, leading them down the corridor to a larger chamber. Inside, dozens of men and women worked silently at consoles, their movements precise and efficient. Screens displayed maps of star systems, along with data streams written in unfamiliar symbols. Monroe stopped near a holographic map suspended in midair. "Earth is gone," he explained bluntly. "Destroyed centuries ago. Those of us who survived fled into deep space, rebuilding what we could. We've been watching you for years, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. Layla's heart sank. So much pain, so much loss, it was almost too much to comprehend. Why now? She asked softly, why show yourselves after all this time? Monroe's expression hardened. Because we're running out of options. Our resources are dwindling, and we need answers. Answers you might have? Ryan stepped forward, his tone cautious. What kind of answers? About Earth's destruction, Monroe replied. We know other species were aware of what happened. Yet none of you lifted a finger to help. Why? The question hung in the air, heavy with accusation. Layla exchanged a glance with Ryan, both of them struggling to process what they'd heard. Before they could respond, another officer entered the room, a woman with short brown hair and a stern demeanor. Commander, she said, saluting sharply. We've detected movement from Zorath 7. They're mobilizing their fleet. Monroe's jaw tightened. Then we better make this quick. Turning back to Leela and Ryan, he added, Tell your leaders we're not here to conquer, but we won't stand by and let history repeat itself. If you want peace, prove it. With that, he signaled for them to leave. Leela and Ryan were escorted back to their shuttle, their minds racing with everything they'd learned. As they re-entered Zorath 7's atmosphere, Lila stared out the window, her thoughts swirling. Humanity wasn't extinct. They were alive, angry, and determined to survive, but at what cost? And could the fragile trust they'd begun to build withstand the weight of centuries-old grievances? The shuttle descended back to Zorath 7, its engines humming softly as it pierced through the planet's atmosphere. Layla Hart sat in silence, her mind replaying every word Commander Jack Monroe had said aboard the human ship. She felt a mix of emotions, awe at the resilience of humanity, sadness for their suffering, and fear of what might come next. Ryan Cole, seated beside her, was equally quiet, though his brow furrowed with concern. The humans weren't just survivors. They were angry, and their anger could easily turn into something far more dangerous. When they landed at the spaceport, Captain Elena Grant was waiting for them. Her expression was grim, reflecting the gravity of the situation. Soldiers stood, nearby, weapons ready, as if expecting an attack at any moment. Report, she demanded, her voice firm but controlled. Lila took a deep breath before speaking. They're human, she began. Their leader is Commander Jack Monroe. Earth was destroyed centuries ago, and they've been living in exile ever since. They say they've been watching us, waiting for the right time to reveal themselves. Elena's eyes narrowed. And their intentions? They claim they don't want war, Layla replied. But they're running out of resources, and they blame other species, including us, for not helping when Earth fell. They want answers, and they want proof that we're willing to cooperate. Ryan chimed in, his tone cautious. They didn't threaten us directly, but their message was clear. If we can't give them what they need, they'll take it by force. The captain nodded slowly, absorbing the information. We need to alert the council immediately. Turning to her soldiers, she added, Double the defenses around the city. I don't care how peaceful they claim to be, we can't afford to let our guard down. As they made their way to the council chambers, Layla couldn't shake the image of Monroe's face from her mind. He was a man burdened by loss, driven by desperation. She wondered how many others like him were aboard those ships, carrying the weight of humanity's survival on their shoulders. When they reached the council, the room was already filled with tense voices debating the best course of action. Kale, the elder who had questioned Lila's theories earlier, raised his hand for silence as they entered. What did you learn? He asked, his gaze fixed on Lila. She recounted everything Monroe had told them, emphasizing both his demands and his warnings. The council listened intently, their expressions ranging from shock to skepticism. When she finished, Dr. Mara Voss leaned forward, her voice calm but urgent. If what you say is true, then we must tread carefully. Humanity is clearly capable of great destruction, but they may also hold knowledge and technology we've never seen before. Cooperation could benefit both sides. But how do we trust them? Another council member interrupted. They accuse US of abandoning them, yet we had no idea Earth even existed until now. How can we prove our good intentions? That's the problem, Ryan interjected. From what we saw, they don't trust anyone. Their entire existence has been about survival. Convincing them won't be easy. Layla nodded in agreement. We have to show them we're sincere. Maybe offering aid would help ease tensions? Food, medicine, fuel, anything to demonstrate that we're willing to work together. The suggestion sparked heated debate among the council members. Some argued that giving resources to the humans could weaken Zorath 7's defenses, while others believed it was the only way to prevent further conflict. As the discussion dragged on, Leela noticed movement outside the chamber's large windows. A group of civilians had gathered below, holding signs and shouting slogans. Some called for peace, while others demanded retaliation against the invaders. It was clear that fear and uncertainty were spreading throughout the population, hours passed before the council finally reached a decision. They agreed to send a delegation to meet with the human fleet again, this time bearing offers of assistance. Lila volunteered to join the team, despite Ryan's protests. You're too emotionally invested, he argued. What if things go wrong? You won't be thinking clearly. I'm the one who understands them best, she countered. If anyone can bridge the gap, it's me. Reluctantly, Ryan agreed to accompany her once again. Together with Captain Grant and a small group of diplomats, they boarded another shuttle and headed back toward the human fleet. This time, the journey felt heavier, weighed down by the stakes of their mission. As they approached the massive ships, Lila couldn't help but marvel at their size and design. Each vessel seemed to hum with power, a testament to humanity's ingenuity even in the face of unimaginable hardship. When the shuttle docked, they were met by Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, the same stern officer who had escorted them during their first visit. His demeanor was cold but professional as he led them to a different section of the ship. Instead of the command center, they found themselves in a large conference room. Commander Monroe awaited them, flanked by several other officers. His expression softened slightly when he saw Lila, though his eyes remained wary. You're persistent, he remarked dryly. I'll give you that. We came to talk, Lila said, stepping forward. To find a way to move forward together. Monroe gestured for them to sit, then talk. For the next hour, the two groups exchanged ideas and proposals. The Zorathians outlined their willingness to provide food, medical supplies, and raw materials in exchange for peaceful cooperation. In return, they requested access to human technology and knowledge, hoping to learn from their advancements. While some of the human officers appeared skeptical, Monroe listened carefully, weighing each point. Finally, he spoke. Your offer is tempting, but words mean nothing without action. Prove your sincerity, and we'll consider your terms. Before Lila could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Everyone froze, their attention turning to a screen displaying live footage of Zorath 7's orbit. Dozens of smaller vessels had emerged from the planet's surface, surrounding the human fleet. It was a defensive maneuver, but to the humans it likely looked like aggression. Monroe's face darkened. Is this your idea of cooperation? He growled, rising to his feet. No, Leela exclaimed quickly. It wasn't supposed to happen. Like this, please, let me explain, but Monroe cut her off. Take them back to their shuttle, he ordered Lieutenant Hayes, and tell your leaders this. We won't tolerate betrayal. If they want war, they'll get it. As the Zorathian delegation was escorted away, Lila felt a sinking sensation in her chest. Everything they had worked for was unraveling before her eyes. Back aboard their shuttle, Captain Grant wasted no time contacting the council. This is a disaster, she muttered under her breath. We've pushed them too far. Layla stared out the viewport, watching the human ships grow smaller as they retreated. She knew Monroe's patience was wearing thin and that the fragile thread of trust they'd begun to build was dangerously close to snapping. Unless someone acted quickly, the galaxy would soon be plunged into chaos. When they returned to Zorath 7, the council convened once again. This time, there was no debate. The humans had made their position clear, and the Zorathians had no choice but to prepare for the worst. Military units were mobilized, evacuation plans drawn up, and communication channels opened with neighboring systems. Yet, amid the flurry of activity, Leela couldn't stop thinking about Monroe's words. He hadn't threatened outright war not yet. There was still a chance to salvage the situation, but it would require bold action. That night, unable to sleep, Leela wandered through the nearly deserted streets of the capital city. The usual bustle of life had been replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional patrol vehicle speeding past. She stopped near a fountain in the central plaza, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the human fleet waited, their fate intertwined with hers. Ryan found her moments later, his footsteps echoing softly on the pavement. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said gently. "It's not safe." "I needed to think," Leela replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "We can't let it end like this." "There has to be a way to reach them," Ryan sighed, sitting beside her. "You're right, but how?" "They don't trust us, and we don't fully understand them." Leela turned to him, her eyes shining with determination. "Maybe trust isn't something we can earn overnight, but actions speak louder than words. What if we sent a gesture, a gift that showed we're serious about helping them?" Ryan frowned. "Like what?" "Something personal," Leela said. "Something that proves we see them as equals, not enemies. Maybe we share one of our greatest achievements with them. Something they can use to survive." Ryan thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it might work. Let's take it to the council." Together, they hurried back to the council chambers, where their proposal was met with cautious optimism. After much deliberation, the council agreed to send a prototype energy generator, one of Zorath 7's most advanced technologies, as a token of goodwill. The device was compact yet powerful, capable of sustaining life support systems for months. It was a gamble, but it was their best chance at averting disaster. The next morning, Leela and Ryan boarded a shuttle once again, this time carrying the precious cargo. As they approached the human fleet, tension crackled in the air. Would Monroe see their gesture as sincere or as a trick? When the shuttle docked, Lieutenant Hayes greeted them with visible suspicion. "Commander Monroe will decide what happens next," he said curtly inside the confer. The fragile truce between the humans and Zorath 7 felt like a thin thread stretched to its limit. While the gesture of sending the energy generator had calmed tensions for the moment, it was clear that trust would take far more effort to build. Leela Hart knew this better than anyone. She couldn't shake the feeling that one wrong move could shatter everything they'd worked for. Back on Zorath 7, life continued under the shadow of uncertainty. Soldiers patrolled the streets, and civilians whispered nervously about the human fleet still hovering in orbit. The council remained divided, some members pushing for further diplomacy while others urged caution. Fearing the humans might see kindness as weakness, Lila spent her days analyzing every interaction she'd had with Commander Jack Monroe and his crew, searching for clues about their mindset. She realized that humanity's survival had come at a cost not just in resources but in their ability to trust others. Years of isolation and hardship had hardened them, turning them into a people who relied on themselves above all else. Yet, beneath their tough exterior, Leela sensed a flicker of hope. They hadn't attacked yet, despite having the power to do so. That meant something or someone was holding them back. Ryan Cole, meanwhile, focused on studying the technology aboard the human ships. Using data gathered during their visits, he worked tirelessly in the lab, trying to understand how their systems functioned. "If we can figure out their weaknesses," he told Lila one evening, "we'll have a better chance of defending ourselves if things go south." Layla frowned. "I don't think that's the right approach. We need to show them we're not enemies." "Studying their tech feels too much like preparing for war," Ryan sighed. "I'm not saying we should attack them, but knowing what they're capable of might help us avoid conflict." "Isn't that worth considering?" Reluctantly, Lila agreed. While she wanted peace, she also understood the importance of being prepared. Still, her focus remained on finding ways to bridge the gap between the two species. She believed that understanding each other's pain and struggles was key to moving forward. Days turned into weeks, and the humans showed no signs of leaving. Their ships stayed in orbit, silent sentinels watching over Zorth 7. Occasionally, small shuttles would descend to the planet's surface, carrying supplies or personnel for brief exchanges. These encounters were tense but peaceful, with both sides careful not to provoke the other. Despite the progress, Lila couldn't ignore the growing unease among her own people. Rumors spread about human spies infiltrating the city, though none were ever caught. Some even claimed the humans were planning an invasion, using the talks as a cover to gather intelligence. One evening, as Layla walked through the research facility, she noticed Ryan hunched over his workstation, surrounded by glowing screens and scattered notes. His face was pale, and dark circles ringed his eyes. "You look exhausted," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I've been going over the scans again," he replied without looking up. "There's something off about their reactors. They're incredibly powerful, but unstable. If we could disrupt them somehow." "Disrupt them?" Lila interrupted sharply. "What are you talking about? You can't seriously be thinking about sabotaging their ships." "No, I'm not," Ryan snapped, finally meeting her gaze. "But what if we had a way to disable their weapons temporarily, just in case they decide to attack? Wouldn't that give us leverage?" Lila hesitated. On one hand, she hated the idea of planning for conflict. On the other, she knew Ryan had a point. If the humans decided to strike, Zorth 7's defenses wouldn't stand a chance. "Fine," she said after a long pause. "But let's make sure it's only used as a last resort." Ryan nodded, returning his attention to the screens. Over the next few days, he worked with a team of engineers to develop a device capable of emitting an electromagnetic pulse, EMP. The goal was simple: create a tool that could neutralize the human ship's power cores long enough to buy time for negotiations or evacuation. Meanwhile, tensions aboard the human fleet were rising as well. Commander Monroe paced the bridge of his flagship, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. He admired Lila's determination and sincerity, but struggled to reconcile her words with centuries of distrust. His officers were equally divided, some urging him to accept Zorth 7's offer of aid, while others warned against lowering their guard. "We can't afford to be naive," Lieutenant Hayes argued during one heated meeting. "They may seem cooperative now, but history shows us that alliances crumble when it suits them. And what's your alternative?" Monroe shot back. "We keep pushing them away until they have no choice but to fight back? Is that what you want?" Hayes fell silent, but the tension in the room lingered. Monroe knew he was walking a fine line. Accepting help from Zorth 7 could save countless lives, but it also risked exposing his people to betrayal once again. In the end, he decided to send a small delegation back to the planet, this time led by Hayes, to negotiate further terms. When the shuttle landed, Leela and Ryan were there to greet them. Hayes's demeanor was colder than before, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings suspiciously. "Commander Monroe sends his regards," he said curtly. "He wishes to discuss additional provisions." Layla nodded, leading the group to a secure location within the research facility. As the negotiations began, she did her best to remain calm and professional, though Hayes's hostility made it difficult. Ryan observed quietly, his mind working overtime as he analyzed the situation. Something about Hayes's behavior struck him as odd, almost rehearsed. It wasn't until later that night, while reviewing surveillance footage of the meeting, that Ryan noticed something alarming. One of the human officers had discreetly placed a small device near the conference table. When he zoomed in on the image, his blood ran cold. It was a sensor listening device designed to gather information. "Lila, we have a problem," he said urgently, pulling her aside. "They're spying on us." Layla's heart sank. "Are you sure?" "Positive," Ryan replied, showing her the footage. "This changes everything. If they're gathering intel, they might already know about the EMP device." Panic gripped Leela as she realized the implications. If the humans discovered their plans, it could reignite hostilities, and this time, there might be no stopping the conflict. Together, they rushed to inform Captain Elena Grant, who immediately convened an emergency meeting with the Council. "We need to act fast," Elena declared. If the humans find out about the EMP, they'll see it as an act of aggression. We have to decide whether to use it now or abandon the project entirely. The council erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as members debated the options. Kale, the elder who had initially doubted Lila's theories, spoke up above the noise. If we strike first, we risk losing any chance at peace. But if we wait, we leave ourselves vulnerable. There is no easy answer. Lila stepped forward, her voice steady despite the turmoil around her. Let me talk to Monroe again. Maybe I can convince him that we're not planning anything hostile. If I explain our fears, he might listen. Ryan stared at her incredulously. You want to walk into the lion's den? After what we've seen? It's the only way, Layla insisted. If we don't try, we're giving up on peace altogether? After much deliberation, the council reluctantly agreed. Armed with recordings of the spy device and blueprints of the EMP, Lila boarded a shuttle alongside Ryan and Captain Grant. As they approached the human fleet, Layla's stomach churned with anxiety. This was their final chance to prevent disaster, but it could also be the spark that ignited war. When they docked, Lieutenant Hayes greeted them with barely concealed disdain. Commander Monroe is expecting you, he said stiffly, escorting them to the bridge. Monroe stood near a holographic display, his expression unreadable as they entered. You've been busy, he said dryly, gesturing toward the screen. It showed images of the EMP device along with schematics detailing its capabilities. Care to explain? Layla swallowed hard, stepping forward. We weren't building it to hurt you, she began. We were scared of what might happen if talks broke down. Please, believe me when I say we don't want war. Monroe studied her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers for truth. Finally, he sighed. Fear leads to mistakes, but honesty deserves respect. Tell me, Dr. Hart, what do you propose we do now? Layla took a deep breath. Work together. Share knowledge and resources. Show the galaxy that humanity isn't just a legend, it's a partner. For the first time since their arrival, Monroe smiled faintly. Then let's start writing a new chapter for all of us. As the meeting concluded, Layla allowed herself a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for now, peace seemed possible. And sometimes that was enough. The fragile agreement between the humans and Zorath 7 marked the beginning of a new chapter, but it was far from smooth sailing. Both sides were wary, their actions measured and deliberate as they navigated uncharted territory. Layla Hart found herself at the center of this delicate process, acting as a bridge between two vastly different civilizations. She spent long hours aboard the human flagship, discussing terms with Commander Jack Monroe and his officers, while also reporting back to the Council on Zorath 7. Ryan Cole accompanied her whenever possible, his technical expertise proving invaluable. In explaining Earth's advanced technology to the Zorathians, despite their progress, challenges arose almost daily. The humans were reluctant to share too much information about their ships or weapon systems, fearing that Zorath 7 might use it against them later. Similarly, the Zorathians hesitated to reveal the full extent of their own capabilities, unsure how the humans would react. Trust remained elusive, like sand slipping through their fingers no matter how tightly they tried to grasp it. One evening, after a particularly tense meeting, Lila sat alone in the conference room aboard the human flagship. Maps of star systems and resource charts covered the table, remnants of their ongoing discussions. She stared at the holographic display hovering above the surface, its soft glow casting shadows across her face. For all their efforts, she couldn't shake the feeling that something critical was missing, a key element needed to solidify the alliance. Commander Monroe entered quietly, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. He paused when he saw her, hesitating for a moment before speaking. You look troubled, he said, his voice softer than usual. What's on your mind? Layla glanced up, surprised by his presence. I'm just thinking about what comes next, she admitted. We've made so much progress, but it feels like we're still dancing around the real issues. Monroe nodded, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. You're not wrong. It's hard to let go of centuries of suspicion overnight. But I can tell you one thing: you've earned my respect, Dr. Hart. Not many people would put themselves in your position. His words brought a small smile to her face, though her concerns lingered. Respect is important, but it's not enough. We need more than that if this partnership is going to last. And what do you suggest? Monroe asked, leaning forward. Because I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers either. Layla thought for a moment before replying. Maybe we need to focus less on what divides us and more on what we have in common. Survival, for example. Both our species have faced hardships and both have found ways to endure. That shared experience could be the foundation we need. Monroe considered her words carefully. Finally, he stood, extending a hand toward her. Then let's start there, together. Over the following weeks, the collaboration deepened. Teams of scientists and engineers from both sides worked side by side, sharing knowledge and ideas. The energy generator provided by Zora 7 proved to be a turning point, demonstrating the potential benefits of cooperation. With its help, the human fleet stabilized their failing life support systems, buying them precious time to locate new resources. In return, the humans introduced Zora 7 to revolutionary advancements in propulsion and communication technologies. Sparking excitement among the planet's researchers, Ryan played a crucial role in these exchanges, often mediating technical discussions and ensuring that misunderstandings didn't derail negotiations. His initial skepticism had softened over time, replaced by a grudging admiration for humanity's resilience and ingenuity. They're stubborn, he told Lila during a rare break, but they're also brilliant. If we can keep working together, who knows what we might achieve. Lila smiled, glad to see Ryan embracing the possibilities. Yet even as optimism grew, old fears lingered beneath the surface. Some on Zora 7 continued to view the humans as a threat, questioning whether their presence was truly beneficial. Likewise, factions within the human fleet argued that relying on outsiders was a mistake. Urging Monroe to sever ties and continue their journey alone, tensions came to a head during a joint mission to explore a nearby asteroid field rich in minerals. The operation required close coordination between human and Zorithian crews, but miscommunication led to a near disaster. A mining drone malfunctioned, causing part of the asteroid to collapse and nearly crushing a team of engineers. Though no one was seriously injured, the incident reignited doubts on both sides. Back on Zora 7, protests erupted once again, with some calling for the humans to leave immediately. Captain Elena Grant struggled to maintain order, her patience wearing thin. "We're walking a tightrope here," she confided to Layla during a private meeting. "One wrong step, and everything falls apart." Determined to prevent that from happening, Lila proposed a bold idea, a cultural exchange program designed to foster understanding and empathy between the two species. "If we can show each other that we're not so different," she explained to the council, "it might help ease some of the mistrust." The suggestion was met with mixed reactions. Some members dismissed it as naive, while others saw merit in the plan. Ultimately, the council agreed to give it a try, hoping it might provide the breakthrough they desperately needed. The first event took place aboard the human flagship, where Zorithian delegates joined their counterparts for a day of storytelling and demonstrations. Humans shared tales of Earth's beauty and tragedy, while Zorithians spoke of their own struggles and triumphs. Layla watched as walls began to crumble, replaced by genuine curiosity and connection. Even Lieutenant Hayes, typically stoic and distant, seemed moved by the stories shared by a young Zorthian artist. As the days passed, similar events were held on Zora 7, drawing crowds eager to learn more about humanity's history and culture. Children marveled at images of Earth's oceans and forests, while adults listened intently to accounts of survival and innovation. Slowly but surely, perceptions began to shift. The humans were no longer seen as invaders or threats. They were survivors, just like everyone else. Despite these positive developments, challenges remained. Resource shortages continued to plague the human fleet, forcing difficult decisions about priorities and allocation. Meanwhile, political tensions Azora 7 threatened to undermine the alliance as rival factions vied for control of the council. Through it all, Lila and Monroe worked tirelessly to keep the partnership intact, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they stood together on the observation deck of the flagship, watching the stars stretch endlessly, before them Monroe broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder what Earth would think of us now?" he asked quietly. Lila turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "I think they'd be proud. You've carried their legacy forward, even in the face of unimaginable loss." Monroe nodded, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Sometimes I wish they were here to see it, to know that we didn't give up." "They are here," Lila replied gently. "In every decision you make, in every life you save. Humanity lives on not just in your ships, but in your spirit." Her words stayed with Monroe long after their conversation ended. They reminded him of why they had come back to honor the past while building a future worth fighting for. Months later, the alliance between humans and Zora 7 had transformed into something neither side could have predicted. Joint missions explored uncharted regions of space, uncovering resources and opportunities that benefited both civilizations. Trade agreements flourished, strengthening economic ties and fostering mutual prosperity. Most importantly, trust began to take root, nurtured by shared experiences and a commitment to coexistence. For Lila, the journey had been life-changing. She had started as a dreamer chasing legends, but she ended as a leader bridging worlds. Ryan, too, had grown, shedding his cynicism for a newfound belief in the power of collaboration. Together, they had proven that even the deepest wounds could heal with time and effort. As the human fleet prepared to depart in search of a permanent home, Lila stood alongside Monroe on the observation deck one final time. "Where will you go now?" she asked. "Forward," he replied simply. "Always forward, and maybe someday we'll meet again." With a nod, Lila stepped back, watching as the massive ships powered up and disappeared into the stars. Though their paths diverged, she knew their bond would endure, a testament to the resilience of humanity and the enduring hope for peace. And somewhere, amid the vastness of space, Earth's legacy lived on, not as a memory but as a promise for the future.